Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and here we are at the penultimate episode of GAMERA REBIRTH. The moon is a harsh mistress. And boy, that title wasn't lying. Now, this episode is a bit of an exposition dump in terms of plot. While they've hinted that the Foundation is up to something, and there's definitely more going on behind the scenes that we weren't privy to, this episode does kind of just dump it all on us, where all of a sudden the characters who seemed okay suddenly turn evil, and there's a lot to take in about what's actually going on. We learn the true nature of at least some of the kaiju, and okay, it's not handled the best, I don't think. It's not handled poorly necessarily, but it is a lot to take in all at once, especially considering we've only gotten a couple of hints throughout the rest of the series as to what was really going on. It's like, here's a sprinkle of something in episode 2. Here's a tiny bit of something in episode 4. Maybe there was something in episode 3, who knows? But then all of a sudden, hey, here it is all at once. Not the best way to handle it. I mean, it's not like I'm thinking that it's annoying or anything. I'm just pointing out that as far as how they could have structured it, they could have given a couple more hints first. They could have done more build-up than they did. Maybe, I don't know, give us a couple more scenes of the adults hinting at what was really going on while the kids are blissfully unaware. Or at least most of the kids are, and maybe Joe is starting to suspect something. Who can say? There's probably a way to have done it better, but it is what it is at this point. I wouldn't say that it makes the episode bad, though. In fact, we finally get to see Mr. Tazuki do something kind of useful. It's kind of curious the way it plays out. Like, he learns what's actually going on, and then all of a sudden it's like he's completely turned. And it seems like it's coming out of nowhere, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, he's up to something. There's gotta be more that he's doing. And it turns out, yes, he was on the kid's side the whole time. He didn't just suddenly hear about this conspiracy and think, well, as long as you're offering me a trip to the moon, I'm all for it. So instead, he actually figured out a way to deceive the real bad guys, which required him to deceive the good guys for a brief time. So he basically became a double agent. But that part worked out a little better than the exposition dump part. And then, of course, we have to talk about the really big thing that happened in the human plot. The thing which, looking back, I think actually was subtly built up, way more than the conspiracy was. And that is what happens to Joe. I spent a good chunk of the last video talking about how Joe is a pretty good character, and he's especially good when you compare him to Haruo from the Godzilla Polygon trilogy, the last kaiju anime that Hiroyuki Seshita worked on. I have a feeling that he might have a particular kind of protagonist he likes to work with, which is understandable, every entertainer does. But the way Joe ends up actually, once again, kind of mirrors Haruo, but in a much better way, once again. At the end, both Joe and Haruo make what are called heroic sacrifices. But in Joe's case, it actually is heroic. Haruo, again, I've spoken at length about this in other videos. Follow the link if you want to know more, like in depth. But basically, Haruo's self-sacrifice at the end of the Planet Eater does not work. It was probably supposed to be harkening back to Dr. Serizawa, But even in that regard, it doesn't work. Because Haruo's whole thing about his kamikaze run at Godzilla Earth only proves that he didn't grow as a character, and furthermore, refuses to grow. Like, he had no development throughout all of the trilogy. And then, in the final movie, he's confronted with the very reason why his deep-seated, unchecked anger issues are dangerous not just to him and the people immediately around him, but the whole darned universe, because he's apparently going to be the human anchor for Void Ghidorah. And then after going through all of that, avoiding the apocalypse by the skin of his teeth, and finding some way with the rest of humanity to settle down with the Hotua, he gets this weird little vision in which the voice of Metphius says that time is on his side, and it's only a matter of time before Haruo's rage takes control again and will bring Void Ghidorah back into the universe to destroy it. Haruo's response to that is to immediately grab the nearest functioning mecha and fly it right at his age-old enemy. It doesn't work because that's a very vague threat. It's like Metphius is saying eventually Haruo's rage will get the better of him again. Eventually it will lead to the apocalypse. So Haruo could have taken that and realized that he needs to improve himself, and he needs to let go of all that anger that he's been holding on to the whole time. But instead, he hears that and he thinks, oh darn, I didn't learn my lesson, and I guess that means I'm never going to. Oh well, nothing to do now except die. So long, honey, take care of our kid, whatever it winds up being, and if your people want to deify me when I'm gone, I have no particular objections to that. It was a really stupid way to end it. With Joe's self-sacrifice, the situation is imminent. They are in an escape pod that is not launching, and the only way to launch it is from outside of the pod, back on the shuttle that's going to crash. Someone has to do something, even though that means that person will be left behind to a terrible fate. And it's been established from the beginning that Joe is the protector of the group. He is the one who will always step in to defend or somehow try to save the people he cares about, even at his own expense. He takes a job to support his father because his father has given in to alcoholism and depression. He defends Boko from bullies. That's how they even met. That one episode with Zigra, when Junichi has her idea shot down by the adults, he's the first one to step in and say, you know, Junichi talks crazy, but she's usually right. And because he knows what it's like to have a bad family situation, when he sees Brody have a similar bad family situation, his empathy kicks in and he immediately says, you know what, I get it, man. It's okay. You're one of us. That is in his nature. So with disaster imminent, and with that being his nature, naturally he's going to do that. And in this case, it's a real punch to the gut. I mean, the human characters, the human side of Gamera Rebirth hasn't necessarily been the strongest, not just because of the visuals, but also because, well, the plots are kind of basic, I guess, and the characters aren't necessarily that complex. But Joe's turning out to be the exception, actually. Well, turned out because, as of this episode, he's past tense. But the way they actually built that up, again, it works. It works on its own. It works when contrasted with examples that really don't work. I really, you know what? Regardless of how the last episode turns out, I think I can say that I believe Hiroyuki Seshita really does want to do these creatures, these characters, these legacy series justice, and that whatever happened with the Polygon trilogy really was the fault of Toho stepping in and going, we want you to do it this way, and you're going to. And him having no choice but to say, okay, yes, sir. So, I mean, I'm not going to delete the videos I made earlier responding to what seemed like really antagonistic comments from him in the past, because I don't think that would be appropriate, really. I mean, I said what I said based on the information I had at the time, which turned out to be limited. Now that I have new information, I guess I can say that I retract that. I think that Hiroyuki Seshita, with the Polygon trilogy, really did get interference. And if Gamera Rebirth is a sign of what he can do when he's given not necessarily a bigger budget, but certainly more creative freedom, then maybe he is the right man to help bring more kaiju anime into the world. He's at least one of them, I think. Like I said, the human side of Gamera Rebirth isn't necessarily blowing me away. The monster stuff certainly is, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I just want to say, I'm sorry, Hiroyuki Seshita. I truly am sorry that I responded the way I did. Yes, I was just going off of what information I had. I don't think that's an excuse, it's only an explanation. But now that I have a better sense of what happened, and now that I've seen what you can do under different circumstances, the past is in the past now. I can let go of my anger, I can let go of my hatred, and I can focus on this new thing. Gamera Rebirth, I think, has opened my eyes, I suppose. So I just wanted to get that out there. Again, I'm not deleting the old videos because I believe in accountability, but I've changed my tune from what those said. Again, at the time, I was just going off of what I knew. I know more now. And I'm not going to be standing here all high and mighty and saying, I forgive you for what you did, because I understand what happened. And I have a new appreciation for Hiroyuki Seshita now that Gamera Rebirth has turned out the way it did. Now, how about the monster side of things? In this episode, Viras is highlighted, and he's just this side of being Cthulhu. They establish in the backstory that he's basically the godhead of this particular foundation cult. They even at one point refer to him as the Golden Devil. Boy, does that sound familiar. And the most powerful of the monsters, which makes the way he's defeated almost anticlimactic. Like, he does a real number on Gamera, who, by the way, is still missing his hand, although the episode does present a possible way that he could grow it back. He grew his eye back somehow, so apparently that wasn't so bad. But after basically taking him down relatively quickly, Gamera very quickly slices him in half. So, I don't know, that went by kind of quickly. I was expecting there to be a bit more of a tussle. I guess you could say there are two ways to interpret it. Either the Foundation's tendency to deify Viras was completely misplaced because Gamera took him out so quickly, so the ultimate foe, the Golden Devil, was really just a harmless little piece of calamari, or Gamera really is that strong. Viras is powerful, but Gamera is more powerful. It could go either way in that regard. But we also, of course, end with the possibility that Gamera is not looking so well and will need to be revived somehow. Again, they kind of hinted at that in this episode's exposition dump. So he's going to come back somehow. Where the final episode goes from here, I have no idea, because they burned through all of the known monsters. Unless they're going to bring the Gauss back or bring in a surprise mystery opponent, well, I don't know. We'll see. But I wouldn't say that I think the episode should have been the finale, because it would have been a really depressing note to end on. There's got to be a little bit more. Anyway, may as well see how it ends, but up to this point, the show has been good. It's not like the greatest kaiju anime ever, but especially compared to the fare we've been getting recently from both the East and the West. It's definitely better, so I think it is worth watching at least up to this point. We'll see if they can bring it all together for the grand finale. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.